What if love didn't choose you because you never stopped choosing what could never love you back? At the edge of an old village where houses whispered stories through cracked window panes, there lived a woman who carried a wooden box bound to her chest. She didn't speak. No one remembered her name. They called her the Keeper of Almost, because everything she touched came close to becoming, but never did. She carried the promise of a love that had never become a gesture, a body, or a home, only a rumor, a fog, a waiting. It was said that she had written letters for 7 winters to a man who left without turning around. Letters with no address, which she placed in the tallest branches of the old fig tree in the fields. When the wind passed, it would take them, and she believed that somehow destiny would know how to read them. But destiny, as we know, does not read letters that were never opened by one's own hands. Every morning she sat before an old mirror, hanging crooked from the fig tree, and asked her reflection, "What's wrong with me that I am not chosen?" The mirror never answered, but always fogged over, as if time itself was ashamed to look her in the eye. One day a village child asked if the mirror was magical. The woman smiled with downcast eyes and replied, "No, it's just a mirror, but it shows me where I remain still." And for the first time, someone heard what no one else could, the ache of not being rejected, but ignored. In a land where even shadows hold memories, no one understood why she kept returning to that fig tree. But there was one thing she herself didn't understand. Why, among so many paths, she always chose the one that led nowhere. On the 8th morning of the month of dense fog, the fig tree awoke without letters. The woman, used to placing her offerings among its branches, felt the absence immediately. It wasn't the wind that had taken them. It was something else. A different kind of silence, as if time itself had shut a door. Then she felt a presence behind her, but she didn't turn around. She was too old to be startled and just young enough to pretend she hadn't noticed. Whoever came didn't speak. They simply extended a hand, offering a small object, a key. Old, rust-colored metal, worn smooth with use, with an inscription too faint to read without light. She took it with hesitant fingers. The figure left without leaving footprints. For days she didn't know what to do with it. A key without a door was like love without a body. Pure delusion. Still, she carried it in the pocket of her threadbare linen dress, as one carries a secret that might never unfold. "If it was given without me asking, perhaps there's something I'm meant to unlock," she whispered to the fig tree, which never answered, but seemed to lean slightly, as if listening. That night the mirror did not fog over. Instead, it reflected her face with unsettling clarity. It was her, but without the box on her chest. A shiver ran down her spine. For a second, she thought she had been freed. She touched her chest in panic. The box was still there, but the reflection showed something else. A crack, a fracture in the wood, as if something inside had started to stir. Then in absolute silence she heard it. Not voices, not words, but a muffled sound from within the box. A sound that resembled breathing, her own, forgotten for so long. And for the first time, she realized she was alive. On the day the box groaned louder, she knew she could no longer pretend nothing was changing. She left before dawn, carrying only the key, a handkerchief embroidered with the word "when," and a dry piece of bread wrapped in silk paper. She didn't know where she was going, but something inside her knew where she could no longer stay. She walked past the field where the scarecrows seemed to have eyes and followed a dirt path she had never noticed before. It was narrow, lined with herbs that whispered upon touch, as if recognizing her steps. The box felt different, no longer like a burden, but like something preparing to be born. And the key, now hanging from a string around her neck, tapped against her chest in rhythm with what she once called pain, but now might be life. She came upon a small cabin covered in moss and ivy. There was no door, only a faded cloth curtain where an entrance should be. She stepped inside without knocking. The air smelled of rosemary and longing. A table stood in the center with 7 empty chairs, and a single candle flickered at its heart, as if someone had been waiting for her arrival for a very long time. On the table lay an oval mirror, smaller than the one by the fig tree, but with the same opaque shimmer of old visions. She sat down. The box on her chest creaked as if something inside it wanted to leave. She picked up the key and, for the first time, looked closely at the inscription. Now, under candlelight, she could read it. Not a door, a ritual. She closed her eyes. The sound of trapped breath grew stronger. And then, as if the universe held its breath with her, the box opened. On its own. Inside, there were no letters, no names, no memories. Only a small mirror. And in it, the face of a woman, crying with relief. She held the mirror like one holds a newborn. Her own face reflected back was different. There was no sadness, no anger. Only a quiet weariness, the kind that settles into someone who has finally come in from the cold and found a clean blanket. The tears stopped slowly. For the first time she cried without a reason, and that made it real. She looked around. The 7 chairs were still empty, but they no longer felt lonely. Each one seemed to carry an old version of herself. The one who waited for letters, the one who wrote names on fallen leaves, the one who begged the sky for signs, the one who kept quiet not to disturb, the one who smiled to be accepted, the one who pretended it didn't hurt, the one who said it was fine. All of them were there, seated in absence. She stood and lit 7 candles, one before each chair. It wasn't a funeral, it was a thank you. The box, now open, still rested on her chest, but it no longer weighed. It had become a part of her, not as a wound, but as a scar that gently teaches the way back. And the small mirror began to fog. She smiled. She knew now. When the mirror fogs, it means life is moving inside. She walked to the cabin's entrance. The cloth curtain swayed with a warm breeze, as if hinting there was more to walk. She left the mirror on the table beside the central candle. But the key, she tied it around her wrist, not as a memory, but as a vow never to force the wrong door again. She left with nothing else. No name, no ache, no hope. Just the box, now empty and free, and a new silence that did not weigh, but led. The field was the same, yet it no longer recognized her. Wildflowers leaned as she passed, not in reverence, but in curiosity. She was no longer the woman who sent letters to the wind. Now she was simply someone walking with an open box on her chest and a key tied to her wrist. And that alone was mystery enough. She walked slowly, not from weariness but from presence. Each step seemed to listen to the ground. She no longer searched for footprints. Her own were new. When she passed other travelers, no one stopped her, but some paused to look at the box. And in that look, something stirred, as if they sensed that this emptiness carried more weight than any story too full. Returning to the village, nothing had changed. Yet the mirror on the fig tree was turned inward, reflecting only the bark. She touched it. The surface was warm. She smiled. She understood now that some mirrors only reveal what the heart has already learned to see. She sat on the stone bench where she once waited for letters from the wind. But now, she simply watched. Children ran, elders dozed, birds traced forgotten routes. And all of it was enough. Not peace, not joy. Something rarer, belonging without proof. At dusk, a young man approached. In his hands was a sealed envelope with no name. He asked if it was hers. She said no. But he insisted. I found it near the fig tree. Someone left it for whoever knows how to read without opening. She took the envelope. Did not break the seal. She placed it gently inside the box. She knew now. Some words only arrive after we've stopped searching for them. In the days that followed, she stopped visiting the fig tree. Instead, she sat in the heart of the village, where sunlight met shadow and time felt suspended. The box remained open, exposed like an altar with no offerings. Some approached. Others averted their eyes as if afraid the emptiness inside might reflect their own. But the children saw something else. They touched the rim of the box with curious fingers, as if it were an instrument from a forgotten song. One placed a wilted flower inside, another a heart-shaped stone, and she didn't stop them. The box that once held a love that never arrived now welcomed small gestures that asked for nothing, and somehow, that healed. No one knew when people began calling her the Mirror Keeper. The name just sprouted like seeds waking in darkness, and she never corrected them. She knew she was no longer the keeper of almost. Something whole had formed within her, even without conclusions, even without answers. One evening, a younger woman sat beside her. She gave no name. She simply opened her chest and revealed her own box, locked, heavy, intact. She cried without sound. The keeper looked at her wrist. The key was still there. She removed it gently and without words offered it like a piece of ancient fire. The younger woman didn't take the key. She only touched the keeper's hand, and that was enough. Because some healings don't come from unlocked doors, but from presences that have learned not to run. And in that wordless gesture, the ritual fulfilled itself once more. Invisible, silent, irreversible. The next morning, the Mirror Keeper was no longer on the stone bench, not in the field, not in the village. Some said they saw her walking before dawn, heading toward the place where sky hesitates between night and day. Others swore she had become a fig tree shadow, a bird song, a breeze that touches the face for no reason. But no one truly searched for her, because somehow everyone knew. She hadn't left. She had simply dispersed. In the center of the village where she used to sit, there now stood a box. Empty, open, light. Inside were 7 items left by different hands: a wilted flower, a heart-shaped stone, a cracked mirror, a letter with no address, a folded paper key, an embroidered handkerchief, and a dry piece of bread. None made sense alone, but together they told a story that only those who've loved without being chosen and still chose to continue could understand. The fig tree mirror began to fog again. At night, the keenest eyes swore it no longer reflected faces but paths, ones that appeared only as you walked them. And when someone felt lost, all they had to do was sit before it in silence, until they heard their own breath returning. That was all. That was the ritual. Because healing is not always forgetting, nor replacing. It is recognizing that the love that didn't choose you may have simply revealed where you had yet to choose yourself. The empty box remained, part altar, part reminder. And someone, one quiet evening, wrote on it in invisible ink, "Every absence holds the beginning of a secret presence. If this story whispered something inside you, let your breath meet our silence. Return often. The path remembers you,